everybody, welcome and welcome back to Naledi Dilena. It's your girl Naledi and I hope you enjoyed this video. Today we'll be talking about TTI and the state of Bulawayo CBD. But before we get there, the reason why I'm talking about this is because I am a social commentary channel. What this means is that I gather, observe data on any social event or issue in Zimbabwe, especially in Bulawayo, because that's where I live, that's where I was raised, and I present it to you. I present all the facts, all the things that I know, as well as my final conclusion on the matter. So, like I said, today we'll be talking about TTI, which stands for what? Tendy. I almost said trendy. You see, this thing is difficult because sometimes I say Tendy Tree Investments, but it is actually Tendy 3 Investments. Okay, Tendy 3 Investments, also known as TTI, which is a Zimbabwean company and Zimbabwean owned company that operates the parking system in Bulawayo today, specifically Bulawayo CBD. Hold on. Oh, sorry. I wish I could cut that out, but I don't have editing software anymore. My phone keeps complaining about space and it's really difficult. So I really have to do everything in one take. So if you see fumbles and stuff like that, just be patient with me. Anyway, so TTI was awarded this tender by BCC, Bulawayo City Council. I'll be reading from the notebook. In 2020, however, official operation and inception began in February 2023. So the reason why I made sure to note that it is a Zimbabwean company owned by a Zimbabwean is because the Zimbabwean in question, who is Lizwe Mabusa, is based in South Africa. And so he does business there. So it makes sense that the money he got to invest into TTI was generated in South Africa. That then in turn caused many people to believe that TTI was a South African entity, increasing the hostility that many people had, especially residents, towards the company. But the owner made sure to emphasize that he's a born and raised Zimbabwean from Bulawayo, actually. I think he said he's from Kezi. I don't know. That's not necessary actually to this video, but yes, he is from Zimbabwe. Be rest assured if that is a concern of yours. So basically, this tender is a build, operate, transfer, which means that the company in question is responsible in order to fund and actually build the parking system that they have. They'll operate it for a number of years and then transfer it into the ownership and responsibility of the local government in question. In this case, BCC. Okay. Other things to note is that at the current moment, even as the operation is still under TTI, BCC gets 30% of all parking fees and 50% of all clamping fees. Basically, when the BOT or build, operate, transfer is still under the responsibility of the company in question, most of the revenue will go to the company because they have to recoup building that infrastructure, which they didn't do. But allegedly, but usually that happens because that infrastructure will not be owned by the company indefinitely. They have to recoup what they invested and then some profit before they transfer it into the ownership and responsibility of the government entity. All right, so the parking system goes like this. The TTI company repaints the lines, the parking bay lines of the streets that they operate in Bulawayo CBD. All right, and so for each parking bay, you have to pay $1 to be parked in it for an hour. It used to be 30 minutes, but you know, that was crazy and people were like, we're not having that. So now it's an hour, which is still a concern, it's still a problem, but we'll get to that, okay? So like I said, they paint the lines, right? The parking bays have two white lines along them, right? And then there are basically yellow lines on either side of the set of parking bays, all right? So those yellow lines demarcate either disabled parking or motorcycle parking, right? Which means motorists from standard motor vehicles cannot park there. That is important to note, okay? So basically you have to pay for the number of hours that you are in the parking spot, and you may have a penalty, a fine to pay, or they may clamp your car if you commit the following transgressions. Number one, you park on yellow lines, all right? Basically, yellow lines in Zimbabwe traffic rules are lines of demarcation that motorists are not supposed to cross, okay? On the side of the road, basically for pedestrians like me, we get to walk on the other side of yellow lines. So if you cross them, you stand a chance to actually not me making it seem like a good thing. You stand a chance. You actually are more likely to hit a pedestrian. So there are usually lines of demarcation, basically demarcating places that motorists cannot cross. Okay. The second transgression is that you are not allowed to park on disabled or taxi parking. That should be self-explanatory, but that means that there's certain parking bays specifically designed for disabled people for easy accessibility of buildings and the like, as well as for taxis, because they are their own business, their own entity, and they need easy access and identification by people who want to then use the taxis. So now that we've outlined who TTI is, what they do, I think, oh yeah, so basically I need to add more. Basically what happens is that every day from Monday to Friday from 8 till about after 5, and then for Saturdays from 8 till 12, there are parking marshals, right? So there are people that go out and enforce these rules. They're the ones that you pay to when you want to pay for parking. They're the ones who write up your fines, and then there's also a separate department amongst the parking marshals that clamp you, right? So if you go into CBD and you see somebody with a reflective vest written TTI, that is a parking marshal, okay? I actually feel bad for them because they're the face of the company and they get so much hate, but they're not the ones making the rules. But I still am weary of you guys, still very weary of you guys, okay? So yes, the parking marshals, they are the ones that enforce basically the rules. They're the ones who you pay to. They're the ones that explain things to you. They're the ones that basically do most of the footwork anyway. So now that you know for sure how TTI works in Bulawayo CBD, let's look at the effects of what TTI's introduction into CBD has done. Again, I'll be referring to my notes. So there's like this almost, it's like the juxtaposition between having more congestion in town and yet town or CBD desertification. I know the word, I know it in my head, just not how to pronounce it. But yeah, there's CBD desertification. For us residents, we usually call, in Zimbabwe we call CBD town. So if somebody says town, they're not just referring to the complete Bulawayo, they're talking about the CBD area. So there is this dual presence of congestion yet CBD desertification. So the congestion comes, I think, more so of repeated movement around CBD. So there's congestion in areas where TTI is not operating. So for the many streets and avenues that are in the CBD of Bulawayo, there are certain areas that TTI has not begun operating. And so there's congestion there in terms of many people wanting to park in those areas because those areas are free, as in no one is paying there because TTI is not operating there, right? There's a lot more movement. The thing is, if you, let's say, park your car in a TTI parking bay and you want to do quite a number of things that will take you a lot of hours, you would have to pay that many hours in dollars. So what some people will do is they'll shift from free space to free space wherever they need to go in order to avoid said parking fine, which again creates some level of congestion. Even in light of that, oh yeah, another thing is there's a general avoidance of parking by meandering. So what can happen is that I can get a lift from someone, they drop me off where I need to go, and they'll go round a block whilst I do whatever I need to do, hoping that it's quick. I get what I need to get, or I do what I need to do quickly, and I wait for them as they round the block to then pick me up so that they don't have to park and wait for me and then pay the parking fine. So you have then people that do that, or in order to pick somebody up, they may drive along the parking base or slowly by the road waiting for whoever they are picking up to recognize them, or for them to recognize the person who's being picked up, so that they then get in the car and then go. But that slow movement looking for the person instead of parking, getting out of your car and looking for them, causes congestion in traffic, especially in peak times, which is your rush hours in the morning, lunchtime, and in the evening when people are going home from work in town. As for the CBD desertification, obviously with parking being expensive, or now that you have to pay for parking, and something that was free before, you have many companies leaving CBD at an alarming rate and setting up offices in surrounding areas such as suburbs, Famona, North End, and the like. Those are areas that, are around CBD. And there are also other areas like Gulumane Complex, stuff like that. This is because if you work in town and you have a car and you want to park your car whilst you work between the hours of, let's say, 8 to 4, that is 8 hours, and that would mean you having to pay $8 every single day. That is not feasible. And even for businesses where consultation times with their clients take long, for example, your medical spaces, your dentists, your optometrists, where you're going in for a checkup or consultation or procedure that will take a long time, it's very discouraging for the client, customer, or the patient, because on top of whatever costs they encounter in the business, they also have to pay for parking. So businesses like that are trying to leave town because, again, whatever profit you make from whatever you're doing, a part of that is used to pay for parking space, and it can be quite frustrating, especially if your margins are low. So you have that sort of stuff. Another thing that is an impact is that there is a loss of business. Okay, so let me just double check. Oh, it's the next point. I'm so smart. I wanted to double check my notes. But yeah, the first, under the loss of business, the first thing that we look at is that no one wants to stay in town for no reason. The thing is, part of the business that people get in town is from people just being in town for whatever reason. So you may go in for one thing but see another and then go and patronize that business, or some people are bored, so they'll just get into town quickly for one small thing or one useless thing and just meander around. But because being in town, especially for a motorist who is going to be parking from here and there, is expensive, a lot more people are selective about when and why they get into town. And this hits businesses, especially those who are along the roads in which TTI operates. So if you're looking at restaurants, in areas that TTI operates, they don't receive as much customers or as many people as they used to, because again, there's no parking, nobody's trying to be in town like that, so there's a loss of business. Like I said before, part of your profits and your revenue now has to go into paying for parking, which can prove expensive depending on how long you're in town at any given time, or how long you need to be in town for your business to operate. So there's a loss of profit, there's a loss of business, and that also is one of the things that leads to the CBD desertification. It's really not a hard word. I'm having a hard time saying it. So yeah, the office spaces now use free parking as a marketing feature. So for office spaces that operate outside of the streets where TTI is established, they use their free parking as a marketing tool. You also have that for buildings that have basements. So for buildings that have basements, they are now a lot more attractive, because even if you have to pay for your space in the basement, it's much more cheaper than having to pay for those 8 hours, or how many hours you'll be paying to TTI for using their parking base. The thing is, the parking bay is still public property managed and under the responsibility of BCC, but because of this contract that they have with BCC, they don't really have ownership, but they have control over those parking bays. All right, so the other effect of this is that areas surrounding town, or the periphery of town, which were largely residential areas, are now quickly, or even faster, they are quickly becoming commercial areas. One great example is the area suburbs. So there were a number of companies that were operating in the area suburbs, which is a residential area. And since TTI's work has continued to frustrate a lot of businesses, many of them are looking for spaces within such areas to then operate out of. The thing about this is that you are then slowly but surely turning a residential area into either a mixed use area or a commercial area. Because with each place that has a commercial, each place within these residential areas that has commerce in them, each company has to apply for change of use of that area. So if you have a home or a stand in a place like suburbs, it is usually a residential stand. You apply for change of use at BCC from residential to commercial in order to do your commerce there. Otherwise, it is rendered illegal. So if you have enough companies doing that, buying up property in those areas, changing the use from residential to commercial, then you can change that area's overall description from residential to mixed use. And if enough of that happens, it then changes to commercial. At the current moment, these areas are still largely residential, but such things affect the residential values of the homes there, and it also affects the way that these commercial areas are evaluated, because there are commerce operating outside a space of commerce, so valuations become difficult. Okay, those are the effects. So let's look at what's being done about it. Okay, so there were scheduled protests between the 12th and the 17th of June, last month, against the company. So this was set up by, I forgot the organization, but it's a business organization or business committee in Bulawayo that proposed the protest and advertised the protest, or spread awareness of the protest to other residents, that no one should park in a TTI parking bay from the 12th to the 17th of June in order to impact the profits and revenues of TTI, and use that as a bargaining tool for talks and negotiations with TTI. basically that's how protesting and strikes work. In order for them to be effective, they have to inconvenience the major body that they are protesting against, so that the protesters demonstrate the power they have, and then force said transgressor into holding negotiation and talks with them. So that was attempted. However, I noticed that people still then went to park in those spaces. So I'm sure many people did protest because it was quite the talk of the town. The whole situation with the parking system with TTI has been a point of contention for many people, not just motorists, but for many people in Bulawayo. So there was piqued interest in the protest. I saw that online. The implementation of that wasn't as, I think, effective as they could have had, mainly because they needed to really show up in numbers for it to be effective and then hold the talks, which at this point I am not aware how said talks were conducted, if said talks were conducted in the first place. But anyways, yeah, the whole TTI thing is it's quite the bummer, I think. Honestly speaking, I think allegedly the main reason BCC began this whole parking system was in order to have another source of revenue, as opposed to their rates, water bills, and fees and fines. I don't know, guys. It's just, okay, I know, but I'm just saying I don't know because I still have to process again some of my opinions about TTI. But basically, this is another revenue source for BCC, and that is the underlying reason why this was implemented. Another reason that's given is for cleanliness in the city, basically to reduce the amount of traffic in the city that causes littering and congestion. I don't really think congestion was mitigated that much, perhaps a little bit, but mainly because people are meandering, people are finding different ways to avoid parking bays. So operation in town is still on, it just has a lot more maneuvering around it, which does not, fix any congestion issues. As for litter, there is still quite a lot of litter in Bulawayo, and that can only be solved, I think, through societal education. Because I know for myself, because of the way litter was preached about, reduce, reuse, recycle, in my primary school years, to this day I still feel like I physically cannot litter. So in order to have that induced throughout your population, you're going to have to do a lot more than instituting paid parking bays. Another thing that's going to hurt BCC in the long run is the loss of business in town. That will affect the economy of the city when you have lower profits and lower business exchange money circulating within the CBD. If it was a matter of distributing commerce away from CBD, that would make sense as to what's happening, because that's what's happening, is that commerce is trying to move away from CBD, at least very highly trafficked areas in CBD where TTI operates. But there is a delicate dance between redistribution and desertification, as well as loss of business. So for some businesses, it's not really a matter of moving out of town, it's a matter of ceasing operation. And so BCC needs to be careful about that. I really don't know, to be truthful now, how effective or how the effects are of these parking bays on the cultural and entertainment side of Bulawayo CBD, mainly because if the TTI people are knocking off at 12 p.m. on a Saturday, I can just come after that. And even on a Sunday, they're not there. If I was doing stuff after hours, they're also not there. So I'm not really impacted in terms of things like nightlife, entertainment. But if I were to want to do that during the day, they would, there would be issues, right? So again, entertainment then is now found in the periphery of Bulawayo CBD. Now that was something that was already happening. There wasn't too much activity in terms of entertainment being found in CBD. There were many areas around Bulawayo far and wide. So I really don't think the entertainment part is impacted. But yeah, that is TTI for you guys. That is the way things are looking. I think I'm going to title this video TTI and the State of CBD Bulawayo, because again, because the company is operating in that area, whatever it's doing is going to affect that area especially. If you have any questions, don't forget to comment down below. If you have any opinions, don't forget to comment down below. I cannot wait to hear you guys' thoughts. Is there anything that we have to consider that you feel I did not look into, I did not bring up in this video? Don't forget to comment. Look out, push the notification bell, since I still do not have a regular upload schedule to be notified every time a video goes up. I hope you guys like, subscribe, and comment down below. Again, I said that, but yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, and I'll see you guys in the next video.